Gather around. Here is a replication of, I'll bet you, what a lot of those books that AJ has written down in his closet of information that he's written down that means nothing. You know how I know this? Because I too
He copied AJ.
started recording all that information the first time that somebody told me, hey, you need to start creating a logbook. Okay? There's a whole day and there's 5 reps of a build drill.
More time writing it down than you do practicing.
That's one of them.
You spend
The
an
other
hour
thing,
shooting and 2 hours.
what do all those numbers mean?
Go back to reference it.
So a Blake drill is basically it's a 3-target build drill, right? There's a draw and 6 presses of the trigger. So a lot of us, we think, man, it never happened if I didn't write it down. So I have to record everything. So we record every draw, every split time, every transition, every additional split time, every other transition, and final split time. And then what do? To make matters worse, I'm going to record the hits. I was Alpha Charlie on the first target, 2 Charlie on the second target, 2 Alpha on the third target. Why are you writing that down? What does it mean to you? Why are you retaining that? What's the purpose of it?
Autism.
But we feel like, well, if I'm not writing it down, then I'm not being accountable for it. And if I'm not being accountable for it, then that's a wasted practice rep. The problem is all of that data, you're filling, like that was 5 reps. 5 reps, and that's almost a full page of information in my notepad. That's 5 reps of one drill that I probably plan on doing 10 times in a practice session. That's what 10 times 6 rounds a piece is 60 rounds. Not even half my practice session. I'm halfway through just one 5-round repetition of that, and I filled out a bunch of just meaningless numbers and data. Most of us, when we start collecting data or writing information in a logbook or a journal, our practice journal looks something like this. I know this because I have students that come to me for private training, and the very first thing I'll ask them, because they know I encourage them to keep practice logs, and man, they can't wait to show me. Hey, you got a practice log? Yeah, I do. Right there. And I open it up and I'm like, sweet Jesus. What does all this mean? Well, what do you mean, what's it mean? Okay, let me ask you again. What does this mean to you? And they go, and I'm like, exactly. Give me that back. Here's what we're doing with that. It's worthless information. And you're going to fill a book after book after book after book with that stuff and do absolutely nothing with it. Logging every single round fired in the gun to me is worthless information. Logging every split, every transition, every hit on the target, man. Now you're spending, a 3-hour practice session like this meant you spent 2.5 hours logging stuff down with 30 minutes of shooting time.
Right.
I'm just saying that because I've done that with you.
Right.
Write every single
That's
shot
too
down.
much. That is too much, and it's all unimportant. In the grand scheme of things, what could I be writing down? This is pertinent information,
Yep.
right? Okay, I ran it left to right, ran it right to left, ran it front to back, ran it back to front. If I know, okay, cool, I spent 100 rounds on that drill, right? Well, that's actually a 6-round exercise, so 100 rounds. If I spent 120 rounds on that drill, how many repetitions did I do? You break it out about 6 rounds a piece, that's 12 reps. Right? Or 12 reps or whatnot. And then, okay, how many of those reps were gone left to right, right to left, front to back, back to front? If I'm struggling with something, like one direction, maybe I put a star or a checkpoint or a dot, something to asterisk, hey, you're lagging the gun a little bit when you're shooting it front to back. That way, the next time I go and shoot that exercise, perhaps I start with front to back, and I let that set my baseline for any of the other directions that I shoot it. Or just like what AJ's done, notes, hits at 22 yards or better than 15 yards, disrespecting the 15-yard target. Maybe it's not disrespecting the 15-yard target. Maybe the note is, hey, seem to be about a half a second faster shooting it left to right than right to left, or any other direction, right? And it's not because, hey, I need to address that next time. It's just a little reminder. It's just something like, it's the little ghost on your shoulder, right? Poking you and saying, hey, remember what you did the last time. It just gives you some information to come back to and look at. All of this, that is meaningless. It was meaningless when you wrote it down, and it's meaningless a week later. It's meaningless 10 minutes after you leave the range. But most of us, when we start creating a logbook, I know we start creating a logbook based on that. I'm going to log everything, every round I fire, every time that I fired the gun. Everything needs to be logged down or it never happened. Stop doing that, right? Make it meaningful.
Jim?
Yes, sir.
I do keep a running round count for purposes of preventive maintenance.
Sure, and that's what we were talking about. But as far as like had a 400 round practice session, had a 500 round practice session, I don't necessarily need that. I do a lot the same way AJ does. So as soon as an entire case of ammo becomes an empty box, that empty box before it gets taken out to the trash, it just goes on a tally mark that I keep above my maintenance table or my workbench in my shop. Right, so like the next time I know when I'm going to take the gun apart and clean it, whether it be to just a field strip and a quick lube, or okay, it's time to do a full detail strip and inspect parts and replace springs and things like that, I can look up and be like, it's been 5,000 rounds since I've actually done anything with this gun, like preventative maintenance wise. Yeah, you know what? I'll open the drawer. I've got another 11-pound spring and a fire, and a firing pin spring. I'm going to go ahead and put those two things in and work, and just cool. Then I'll clean it, lubricate it, put it back together, and let's go shoot it, right? But if I'm not up to that point yet, then anything else is like, it's not time to replace the spring yet. Then it's just like, well, I'll look at the gun and be like, ooh, that breech face is really dirty. It's pretty gritty. The trigger's starting to feel pretty gross. It's just time for a clean. I'll look up and be like, yep, okay, I've only shot 2,500 rounds or 3,000 rounds through the gun yet. It's not time to replace anything, or shouldn't be, unless I've got some sort of a catastrophic failure or something like that. But other than that, yeah, I don't. Right, writing it down in a logbook like that, then I've got to go back, okay, well, that was 400 rounds, and past that, okay, that was 600 rounds, okay, well, there's 1,000. It's easier just to kind of tally it up by case goes in the trash, well, that was 1,000.
So, Tim, following that mentality, are you only shooting one type of ammo per pistol? So, like, if you're shooting CCI, you're only shooting it in this one pistol, and that's how you're able to keep track of when you go through that case of ammo, it's only for that pistol.
I would say no. For me, not really. Yeah. So I shoot primarily everything 9mm, right. But I kind of know just based on like what have I been traveling and shooting with as of late. If I'm teaching with it, chances are very, very high I'm also training and practicing with that gun as well. So like right now, both of my 9mm, excuse me, IPSC single stack guns, right now both have approximately 2,600 rounds on them because I just put fresh springs and everything and detail stripped and cleaned both of those guns in preparation for US IPSC Nationals, which was back in April. As soon as April came and gone, right, it was finally like, whoo! Thank God I can put them bad boys back in the safe. It's time to get out the high cap gun for a while. I have not touched that gun since then. Right now, like I said, I'm sitting at about 2,600 rounds a piece on those pistols. So they're not ready for any kind of maintenance yet. Should I clean them while I put them in the safe? Nah, I ain't got time for that either. I'll pull it back out. I'll add a little lubricant to it and just keep on shooting them, right? But I know where I picked up where I left off at.
All right, I got a question for you guys.
Oh, and Dan had a question real quick.
Oh, go ahead, Dan. Let's see.
And obviously, it's good to keep track of how much ammo you're shooting, but like as far as maintenance-wise, like what is that like an arbitrary like round count number that you just from experience?
Yep. Yeah, for me it is.
Okay.
For me it is. Like I know the gun starts feeling in recoil, like the recoil impulse of the 9mm, especially which is primarily the ammo I shoot. When the recoil spring starts to get pretty weak, the gun starts to feed the next round just a little sluggish, but I'll also feel a lot more like felt recoil into the hand because there's not enough recoil resistance against the slide. So I'm like, man, that gun's feeling a little snappy. For me, a lot of times too, I'll look at that tally on the wall and be like, I've got about 3,500 rounds, and no wonder the dot doesn't seem to stabilize very well under like longer courses of fire, like doing bill drills, where the dot usually tracks like this, and all of a sudden I'm getting some things that, and I'm like, God, I feel like I'm gripping the shit out of it, right? And sometimes they're like, maybe my dot is loose. So we do things like we're wiggling around and making it. Now, might be worth going back and taking a look at how many rounds have you got through it? Are the springs getting a little weak? So now the gun's getting a little tired, right?
That said, there's nothing wrong with tracking
your
round counts.
No, but me not being a gunsmith, I don't log those types of failure points and things like AJ does.
That's kind of what I was like. Run it until it fails, and then document that, so then when you get close to that, it's
I will tell you right now, all of my new guns, so like both of my 9mm single stack guns, one's got a traditional full length guide rod and an 11-pound spring in it, and the other one's got the 13-pound or 12-pound flat wire, what they call their Everlast spring. And I didn't swap to another full length guide rod on that one. It's running a slightly slender guide rod with that flat wire spring on it. I have not replaced the spring in that gun yet because I want to see just how far I can stretch the legs on that gun before I start to see hiccups or failures on it. Now, I'm not going to do that in a major match, right? But I am not beyond swapping the fresh spring right back out of it at a major match and putting the old spring back in it because I'd like to see where that failure point starts. I know just based on tons of experience with a standard, a conventional recoil spring on my 9mm guns, based on the ammunition I shoot, I can easily go 5,000 rounds without having to worry about a spring rate change.
That's like a Saturday afternoon for you, right?
It could be. A lot of